Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more interesting stories like these. Now, let's get into today's story video. My personal story. Yes, it is a real story and discusses my cheating wife and the impact on a lifetime relationship. My question and would like advice. Based on this, am I crazy to try this again, and is it worthwhile at 60 years of age? Part 2. It felt weird the day we signed the divorce papers to make it official. The situation had been friendly, but it was still difficult. We met in her attorney's office, and it was a depressing experience for me. I was disappointed that she sounded so upbeat about the situation, and that she was there with her dirtbag boyfriend. She appeared nearly ecstatic about it, which surprised me. We'd been together for a long time and had a family together. This was the one time I felt disrespectful by her throughout the divorce, but I ignored it since there was nothing left to prove. The marriage had ended, and we needed to go forward. I could detect some remorse in her eyes as I signed the paperwork. I believed she had a shocked expression on her face because of what I said to her. I had given it some consideration and had already chosen what I was going to say. I have to say that I am pleased with what I said and how nicely it came through. I'm hardly an actress, but on this particular day, I had a flair for the dramatic. I had written it down and rehearsed it until I was confident in saying it, and this is what I said. Of course, this makes me sad. I felt we had lovely life and worked well together. I apologize if you believe I failed you because I was unable to provide you with the happiness you desired, and you believe that someone else would provide you with a greater chance at happiness. I believe the miscarriage had a far larger role in this than we understand. When disasters occur, individuals either get closer and stronger, or they experience isolation and loss. I'm upset and find it ironic that what should have been a wonderful event for us ended up destroying us. But it is now in the past. I want you to have a good life, and we can work together to provide the happiest and most secure existence we can for our children. When I stated this, the room became silent. Her face was very white, and I could sense remorse in her eyes. I stood up, shook her hand, wished her well, and said farewell, and her attorney said he would give me a copy of the documents. Things seemed to be going well at first. She was living with him, but after a few months, started to develop in their relationship. He supposedly drank too much, was a jerk, lived off his family, and was not much of a guy. He also seemed to have a wandering eye and was already plotting his next conquest. She seemed to be a younger girl who worked at another restaurant owned by his father. It's worth noting that I kept ordering meals from the original restaurant. When I walked in for my order, the proprietor would always welcome me with a look of humiliation on his face. I would never have stayed there because it would have been weird. My ex-wife worked there and lived with his kid. When you consider that he also abandoned his wife, the owner was not happy. He was a family guy who once told me that he didn't know what went wrong with his kid. Naturally and predictably, things started to deteriorate with this new exciting power couple. They were constantly bickering, and things were not going well for my ex-wife. I believe my ex-wife saw that I wasn't such an awful alternative and that things aren't always greener on the other side. She had a strong guy in me who prioritized her and the kids. I was a decent spouse, and she might have made a pretty bad choice. She did contact me numerous times to express her dissatisfaction with her life, but I informed her that I was not the person to speak to about it. She said that I was her best friend and that she could always speak to me. I told her that was correct, but that circumstances had changed and I didn't feel comfortable being a part of the conversation, and that she needed to hash things out with her new partner on her own. I didn't want to be a part of her relationships. She agreed, but I believe I heard some pain and sorrow in her voice when she disconnected up after I told her this. She took the kids over to her apartment with her dirtbag boyfriend for a sleepover and movie night one night. That evening, I received a distressing phone call from her. This father had apparently drunk too much and was irritated that the kids did not want to watch one of his programs. I'm not sure what the program was, but the kids seemed uninterested. As a result, Dad became enraged and hit my youngest daughter because he felt she was being snobbish. The smack was harsh and left a bruise on her face. So I got a call and immediately headed over there. My immediate instinct was to contact the police, and maybe I should have. But I went over there to pick up my children. I grabbed my children and fled. I informed him that if I heard anything again from him about this, I'd contact the police, and he'd be in big trouble. I confess that I got a kick out of telling my ex-wife. And this is what you left me for. She didn't say anything, but she did sigh. I believe she was embarrassed by what had happened. I'm not sure whether she regretted the divorce, but I believe she knew what she had done and was sorry. Later that night, I heard a tap on the door, and there she was, weeping and distressed. I allowed her in, and she informed me she had split up with her partner and wanted to return home. Now, I tried for many minutes to tell her that I loved her and that we had a history, but I couldn't. With all that had happened, I didn't believe it was a good idea for her to return, and there were just too many painful memories. I would never have left my children's mother alone on the street. She did come in and called her parents. I brought her there to stay. My ex-father-in-law greeted me and thanked me at the door. He said I'd always been a decent guy and a good spouse. He understood that I had prioritized the kids and was concerned for his daughter's safety as my ex-wife. I did assure him that I will always be proud of his daughter. Maybe things didn't go as planned, but I wouldn't allow anything bad happen to her. I am still proud of what I did that night and what I chose to do to defend my children and, eventually, my ex-wife. She stayed at her parents' place for nearly a year until she was able to get back on her feet. She eventually got a nice job and moved out on her own. She had always been an excellent mother, and her old vigor and spark had returned. It wasn't ideal, but there was a feeling of normality about it. She could have a streak of failed relationships, and I believe she was taken advantage of multiple times. She told me many times that I was the finest relationship she'd ever had and that no one else could compare. Maybe it was a lot of nonsense, but I enjoyed hearing it. Having said that, nothing amorous transpired between us again, and I maintained a polite and respectful friendship with her. I could have been with her again if I had wanted to, but I chose not to. In my heart, I wanted to, but I was afraid of getting injured again. During this period, I had dated a few ladies, but nothing substantial in terms of a relationship. Several of them wanted more from me, but I was about to give in. I was preoccupied with work and my children, and I had no desire to get into another marriage or long-term commitment. There were simply too many negative memories for me, so I concluded that doing it alone was the best option. The years flew by. My children succeeded well in school, went on to have successful professions, married, and established families. My ex-wife and I would see one another at family gatherings on a regular basis. She would constantly question whether I was dating someone, and if there was still a possibility for us to rekindle our relationship. I always told her no because certain things in life stay with you, and you can't get away from them. She usually wore a sorrowful expression on her face and informed me that leaving me was the biggest choice and mistake she had ever made. She informed me that there isn't a day that goes by that she doesn't consider what if. She also said that it was particularly difficult for her during occasions such as weddings, birthday celebrations, and other family gatherings. She informed me that the most difficult days for her in this regard were when her mother and father died and she had to attend their funerals. She was heartbroken to see me there, but I was not there as her spouse and partner. She recognized me as a strong guy and a nice spouse to her, but on these days she felt alone and bereft. She felt the same way during each of our children's weddings. She believed those would have been wonderful days for us to spend together. She inquired whether I had ever felt the same way. My response has been that the event was heartbreaking for me, but I choose to go ahead and not look back. Her remorse seemed absurd to me since she was so certain that genuine happiness lay with a new lover. We're approaching 60, and I'm thinking of leaving work and going someplace warm, if just for the winter. My children support me and adore their mother. I last spoke with my ex-wife before relocating at a birthday celebration for one of our grandkids. She requested to talk with me alone, so we went outdoors. She got really emotional and unhappy as a result. She always imagined there was a possibility we'd rekindle our relationship. My departure would be the end of the world for her, and she would have to live with the guilt of having failed as a wife for the rest of her life. I informed her that so many years had passed and that she should not be feeling this way. I felt nothing but affection and respect for her. She then inquired as to whether she could be able to pay me a visit. I told her I didn't know, but I'd think about it. I confess that every time I glanced into her gorgeous green eyes, my heart melted. She looked very lovely to me on this particular day, and the years had been extremely kind of her. On this day, regardless of what had happened before, I must say that I had never felt more profound love for her than I did on this day, at this time. At this time in my life, I believed I would be open to rekindling my connection with her. I was not going to remarry, but what did I have to lose at this point? She did make me happy at one point, and my feelings for her have never faded. Maybe we can go ahead at this point in our life. Update. I've been spending the winter in the Carolinas, and my ex-wife did pay me a visit. I know it's crazy, yet all of the same sentiments are still there. She remained at my house, and we did a lot of things together. I'm happy to say that, even though we're older, we discovered that we still get along great during that special time. She was only supposed to be there for a weekend, but it turned into 2 weeks, then a month. She began to wail, and one night, because of something that occurred literally years ago. She informed me that the last several weeks had given her a lot of joy and that she was sorry for what had transpired. She told me that she was always thinking about what if, and whether she had squandered her life hoping for some kind of ideal romance that couldn't exist. I told her it was all in the past and that maybe it was time for us to move on and reassess our future together. I told her that I had always loved her and that my emotions for her had never faded and that she may want to come down and live with me forever. I told her I wasn't ready for another marriage, but would it really make a difference at this stage in our lives? She consented, never left my house, and everything has been going swimmingly. When we informed them, their expressions were filled with disbelief, but they were also overjoyed for us. My youngest daughter, on the other hand, told me she wasn't shocked since she knew my love for her mother had never died, and she had a hunch things weren't finished. Some may think I'm insane for doing this again after so many years, but at this point in our life, there is only love and respect. What occurred so many years ago is no longer relevant. Now, when I see my wife, and I confess, I've always thought of her as my wife. All I feel is love and devotion. I believe things will improve more, and I hope we will have many happy years ahead of us as we get older. She made a terrible choice, but that is now in the past. I believe we both face the consequences, but I'm looking forward to life and moving on. Perhaps it's corny, but one thing is crucial to me. I always assumed we were co-writing a book, but was disappointed that we would never be able to complete it. I'm glad we now have another opportunity to complete the book and include the last chapters. Will my wife cheat on me again? I don't believe she would at this point in our life. However, age and experience have taught me that individuals are a mixed bag. Everyone has both good and negative qualities, and one action or choice does not make or break a person. I, too, have regrets. My regret is that I always loved my wife and let my unhappy sentiments to determine what I did. Maybe I should have simply realized that she is a human being and not made such a poor judgment. Perhaps I should have tried this sooner, and things would have turned out differently. I, too, wonder what if, but I'm pleased we have this second opportunity. With that, I'll end, and maybe I provided some food for thought for some of you.